development of the new corporate strategy, and it's my paper, so I will read the introduction that I've got for it. Many members are not wholly enthusiastic about the present corporate strategy. I've long been unhappy with having to slot any action into predetermined headings, which had to be at the time the same as West Devon's, and in fact try to avoid at all times looking at the council screensaver which shows these headings. A lot of effort and consultation was put into the recovery and renewal plan and the proposed actions it contains, a number of which are well on the way. This, combined with the strategic objectives of the joint local plan and the major investments proposed in the budget this year, the report to council last month proposing further investments to counter the COVID downturns as a result of forced closures, and proposals to help recovery further, will form a good basis on which to build the new corporate plan. In my acceptance speech when I became leader, I made it clear that the strategic direction I would set would be to drive forward the JLP, support and realise the well-being of residents and businesses, including increasing employment opportunities, and to preserve and enhance the historic fabric and the natural beauty of the district, including natural resources and biodiversity. Now, since then, we've had the climate change emergency has been declared, and we've had the whole of the COVID pandemic. But I think that we're well on the way to setting the strategy. In addition to what I said when I became leader, there was also a pledge to end the unfair business rate situation for second homeowners. Now we have good reason to understand that that is firmly on the way to being resolved. And also one that during my term as leader, there would be no further talk of amalgamation with West Devon Borough Council, but that we would at all times seek to cooperate and work closely with them, which I believe to have been the case up to now, and I trust in the future. Since then, as I say, we've had the whole climate change agenda coming to the forefront, and in spite of criticism from some members, I believe that we have more money pledged to this and are further forward with plans and actions than many other Devon districts, apart possibly from Exeter City, which has long been working with the university on this. Most of the work on the corporate strategy has been held up by the pandemic, but I'm pleased that the new corporate strategy is now back on track, and I'm keen that we don't once again get shoehorned into headings until the broad strategic thrust of the actions is clear. And that is why paragraph 4.5 in this report only describes broad groupings. These will form the basis of the member engagement sessions to be scheduled. Finally, the timeline for this is pretty tight and is set out on page 49 of the papers. Thank you. Members of the executive, do you have any questions you want to ask me?
No, lady.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
No, other than let's get on with it. Yeah.
What, get on with the corporate strategy?
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree. But are there any questions from the floor? I can't see any, so I will propose the recommendation, which is quite short at the head of the paper. And we'll go into, thank you, and we'll go into the debate. Members of the executive, do you want to make any comments? No.
At this stage, I'd just like to hear what comments from the members are.
Yes, exactly. Any comments from members? Oh dear, they all gone away. Well, no, there are 25 still on the call. So, right, well, everybody seems to be happy with that. Oh, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, yeah, I just echo Councillor Baston's words of let's get on with it. It's time that we sorted this out and we have a new corporate strategy which will bring forward and move us on with the time. So I think we need to do this ASAP. That's all I wish to say. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Rowe, it was held up by the second lockdown and everything that involved. So I apologise for that, but it's really, circumstances beyond our or the officer's control.
No, hopefully we'll be in a better position in 12 months' time. Thank you.
Well, hopefully we're going to have the corporate strategy long before then. Anybody else? Because if there isn't anybody else, let's take a vote on it then. Is everybody in favour?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
everybody in favour? Right.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. So we can now move on to item 11, which is Councillor Hawkins, and it's the release of Section 106 funds for Dartington Woodland Adventure Bike Track project. Councillor Hawkins.
Right, thank you, Leader. Southampton District Council has £133,208.46p. What we're going to do with the 46p, I'm not certain, but we've got 46p as well. S106 funds in the Dartington parish for improvements to sport facilities. Relevant clubs and sports organisations were recently invited to apply for the available S106 funds, and the Dartington Recreation Association submitted a number of applications, including one for a woodland adventure bike track. The proposal is to create a 2-loop bike track with an existing woodland area. The bike track is proposed to be suitable for all ages and abilities. The outer loop is primarily for beginners, those learning to ride their bikes, or those on a 3- or 4-wheel adaptive bike. The inner loop is for more experienced riders looking for a challenge and to develop their new skills. It will have beams, which I believe are banked turns, rollers and jumps. The award member has expressed concerns about this project relating to the potential impact of the bike track on the woodland and its associated wildlife, and does not support the expenditure. For this reason, the application has had to come to the executive for consideration. The application has been considered by officers as set out in the report. Despite concerns from some members of the community, there is overall support from that community for the project. The community has been consulted and involved in the design which is being proposed. The track will provide a new facility open to all abilities, as we've said, and a bike track committee and volunteers has been formed, giving confidence that there will be a lasting impact on the project and support for the project in the future. Planning permission was granted in October 2019. The planning process considered the potential impacts on both the woodland and its associated wildlife, with both the tree officer and the ecologist satisfied that the development was acceptable, subject to planning conditions. The proportion of the S106 funding being requested is small, with the other funding secured, and the project is thus considered to represent good value for money. The recommendation is therefore that the executive approve the release of 11,387 S106 funds towards the Dartington Woodland Adventure Bike Track project. I would just like to add that I was invited by the Dartington Recreational Association to visit them some month ago now, which I did, in social distancing, so we were perfectly capable of visiting safely. It's a fantastic facility that they maintain, and it's something that I wish other communities could aspire to. The bike area is for this to be decided to this morning, and we have had meetings with the local ward member yesterday, but we still feel that this is good value for money and the project should continue, and we're not here to discuss the rights of the planning application which took place in 2019. So I would move the recommendation, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Executive members, do we have any questions? You'll second that. Thank you, Councillor Bastow. Any comments or questions? I think we can take them all together on this one because I'm hoping that it won't be too much of a complex matter. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, I actually want to make a statement on this because I think this is quite a critical one. So will you permit me the opportunity to do that? It's not going to be very long, and I've restrained myself from saying anything else at this executive meeting so that I can hopefully have a little bit of generosity of time.
Okay, as long as it's not too long, Councillor Hodgson.
No, it won't be, but I just think it's something that's really important to hear because, as you can probably imagine, I'm extremely compromised in this situation. I find it very, very difficult. And I would like to say that, for a start, today is Earth Day, so it's pertinent. It's a day when we are called on internationally to take our part in observing good practice and care for the natural environment. Regarding the report that is before you, I wish to state really clearly that I'm not against the development of a bike track in Dartington. Indeed, it's really, it's wonderful to have all these facilities coming forward. And I've already said absolutely yes to a number of other finances that are going forward for this very area, for their community centre, the other play areas, the mugger, etc. And the DRA are a really good bunch of people. They're doing a hell of a lot. There's a lot of young families involved, which is wonderful to see. It's simply the choice of the mature woodland site that's the problem. I wish to make some points regarding the biodiversity value of that 0.2 hectare site, as Southampton District Council is ultimately responsible for any damage to protected wildlife and habitats if we have supported this by financing a proposal that we know is likely to cause damage. This report that's before you today fails to mention that the parish council objected to this development, and that position remains. And indeed, as Councillor Hawkins said, there was an open day about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Members of the parish council attended, as did I, and a lot of other people, and the discussion was held there as well then. In the last 2 years since the planning for this track was determined, we've seen huge changes in the understanding of the major losses of our biodiversity. The recent UK government independent Disruptor Global Review on Biodiversity was published in February, and that laid bare how serious the situation is for wildlife and biodiversity. It made a clear case for the urgent need to change practices and backed a proposal for the government to assign a monetary value to natural resources like forests and healthy soil. And I believe that our decision today should be considered in this new light. If you go to page 66 of the report, is it possible to pull that up, please? This illustrates what the BMX bike track is expected to look like. And it's a very different scenario to the aerial photographs of the site as it now is, which is on page 63, which is a dense wooded area. Okay, well, you've got it in your reports anyway. The ecology report for this site that the DRA submitted at the time of the planning application makes a clear case for this being a UK BAP biodiversity action plan that is priority habitat and acknowledges the likely presence of breeding birds, otters, dormice, as well as roosting and commuting and foraging bats. And all bats are protected, plus toads and spotted flycatchers. The latter two are UK BAP priority species. And a lot of these animals will be using the understory. This is not about the trees, it's about the understory. The conditions of the planning decision issued in October 2019 were fairly stringent and required a series of measures and additional reports and methodology statements to protect the wildlife, trees and ecology. This included the Landscape and Ecology Management Plan, of which 18 months later, none of this has been produced. And these are important documents that would enable you today to understand what measures could be put in place to ensure that damage from this site is being repurposed as a bike track rather than tranquil unspoilt woodland. We don't have this information to enable an informed decision to be made today, I don't believe. If you go back to page 63, this shows that the woodland is part of an important wildlife corridor that follows Bidwell Brook as it snakes through the centre of Dartington. In the last 4 years, the ecological value of this wildlife corridor has been compromised by a series of planning applications that have affected its biodiversity integrity, such that wildlife are becoming isolated and their future put in further jeopardy. The level of disturbance alone has driven away significant levels of wildlife. This will worsen the impact, and remember I raised the whole thing about cumulative impacts at the JLP workshop a few weeks ago. This part of the wildlife corridor that is proposed for the BMX bike track is not so much compromised by impact on trees, so much as the understory, which is likely to be damaged, and wildlife identified in the ecology report directly killed and indirectly lost by youngsters going well off the 70-centimetre wide track and cycling directly through the off-track areas. There's nothing to stop them doing this, possibly up to 3 to 5 abreast if they race and overtake each other. All great fun, but that is going to be a cost to
Hodgson, you've had 5 minutes now. Could you wrap up, please?
Okay, so I'll just say my last statement, which is basically that Rob Secula, in his conclusions for on the ecology assessment at the time, said that it would remain remiss of me not to note that avoiding the siting of the BMX bike track within the woods would, of course, be a preference, and instead siting the track, for example, on the amenity grassland, which has negligible ecological value. And I just ask that we uphold our duty as an LPA and not agree to finance an ecologically unsound proposal, which is likely to cause significant ecological damage to a wildlife corridor, conflicts with our JLP policies to protect wildlife corridors and habitats, and could expose Southampton District Council to a judicial review. And that I ask, therefore, we do not pay these 106 monies for this current BMX bike proposal, as they have not produced the length. And we ask that they reconsider the siting and use the adjacent grassland area, which is also within their gift to use, and we hold these monies for a further 6-month period to give them the opportunity to present a different site.
Councillor Hodgson, there is an extant planning commission on this land. All this report is seeking to do is to passport the money so that the planning application can be carried out. Now, in order to do that, they will have to get all their conditions discharged, just like any other applicant. And so I can't see what part we would play in this. The principle of this has already been agreed, and it is unfortunate that often the action on planning commissions is often way after the event and things have moved on, but that is the way the system works. Does anybody else wish to make a comment on this one before we take the decision? Do I have anybody else up there? I don't think so. Right. Members of the executive, can we take a vote on this one? Is anybody against it, given what Councillor Hodgson has just said?
That's unanimous, thank you.
Can I assume that we're all in favour of it? Would you
In
just like to
favour.
say yes? Yes, in favour?
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Baldry?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you. Well, we're all in favour of that paper, so that will go through. Thank you very much, members. I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. I've slightly lost count, but I think we've done all of it now, even though we haven't taken it all in order. I thank you for your attendance and your contributions, and look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader.